Welcome back to Ms. Burkhart's math class. Make sure you have your notes, something to write with so you can take notes as you watch the video. Make sure you're pausing the video so you can complete your notes. And as always, make sure you go back and watch any parts you're not fully understanding to make sure you get it. So today we are going to talk about standard 6.6c, which is simplifying numerical expressions involving integers. Specifically, what you're going to learn today is the correct order to do a problem that has more than one operation. You may have heard it as the order of operations. So we're going to work on that today, and let's get started. In the world, there is literally one agreed upon order that we all solve problems that have more than one operation in them. You know, operation meaning like adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, so forth. And we have this order so that everyone will get the same answer. Here's what I mean. If you'll notice down here, I've rewritten this same exact problem 3 times. So you can see how we could get different answers depending on what order we solve the operation. For example, if we take the first one and I say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to start from the beginning and work to the end. So that means I will start with 4 plus 8, right? And I will get 12. Notice how I'm writing the steps because you're going to be doing this too. And then I'm just going to bring down the rest of the problem. And then I'll do the next operation, which would be 12 times 3, which is 36. And then I bring down the minus 10. And 36 minus 10 gives you 26. So by doing it in this order, I got 26. Well, let's try a different order. What if I tried it, I don't know, let's try multiplication first. Let's do the 8 times 3. All right, so 8 times 3 is 24. Then I'm just going to bring the rest of the problem down. And, I don't know, let's do subtraction next and do 24 minus 10, which gives me 14. And then I'll bring the last part of the problem. 4 plus 14 gives me 18. So notice I have the exact same numbers, the exact same operations, but I did them in a different order and I got 2 different answers. The same thing can happen if I start over here and let's start with 3 minus 10. 3 minus 10, that'll give me a negative number, right? Negative 7. 4 plus 8 times negative 7. And you can see even already, I'm going to end up getting a different answer by doing it in a different order. So that's why everybody decided we agree upon solving problems with more than one operation. And we solve them in an agreed upon order so that we all get the same answer. And here is that order. You may have seen it as PEMDAS in elementary school, but we've broadened our horizons a little bit and we're a little bit more specific, inclusive, whatever. And the first letter is now going to represent G, representing grouping symbols. So grouping symbols, this does include problems in parentheses, like you probably learned in elementary school. And that's the key thing here. It's not just parentheses. If there's a problem or an operation to do inside the parentheses, like you see here. Another thing that could be included in the grouping symbols is absolute value that we've learned about recently. So if I had a problem in a problem that had the absolute value, I would solve that in this first step in grouping symbols. Or another thing could be a fraction bar. If you notice this, it has an operation to do in the numerator, 2 plus 3. And then that fraction line means to divide. So before I can divide by 2, I'd have to do the grouping part of 2 plus 3. So all of these things would be done first. If a problem has anything with grouping symbols, that gets done first, no matter where it is in the problem. After you've done all the grouping symbols, then comes exponents, which also we recently learned. So one example I put in there was 3 to the second power, right? Which is 3 times 3, right? Which equals 9. It is not 6. So exponents would be solved next. Then, after you've done all the grouping symbols, all the exponents in the problem, then we get to this, multiplication and division. But notice it's multiply or divide, here's the key part, whichever one comes first as you're reading it left to right. So that does not mean that you always multiply before you divide. You don't. These are interchangeable, so it depends on which one comes first in the problem. So if you had a division problem first, you would do that first, and then the multiplication. All right, so once you've done all the grouping symbols, then you do all the exponents. Then you solve multiplication or division, whichever comes first from left to right. Last but not least, you would be left with adding or subtracting. Same rule applies as the multiply and divide. You do whichever one comes first as you're reading the problem from left to right. So again, multiplication and division are interchangeable. You do not necessarily do addition first if it doesn't come first before subtraction, okay? So this is in your notes. You may want to add these arrows to your notes as well. So you remember, it's you multiply or divide, whichever comes first, get all those finished, and then you add or subtract, whichever one comes first. So let's do some examples. This one's on your notes, and watch how I'm doing this because I want you to write this out the same way. Notice I've put our little order of operations here beside the problem, each problem, so you can use it to help you remember which one you're going to do first. Let's see. In this problem, I have addition and multiplication. So I'm going to circle the addition and I'm going to circle the multiplication. Notice I don't have any grouping symbols, exponents, division, or subtraction. So this kind of helps you see what you're going to do first. Just go down the row. Notice you're going to multiply first. So put a box around 3 times 4. There's a reason for this, as you'll see in just a moment. It helps to make sure you don't accidentally reuse any digits that you may have already used to solve. Here's what I mean. So let's do 3 times 4, and below that box, I'm going to put the answer, which is 12, right? Now I'm going to bring down everything else in the problem that I haven't used, which is, in this case, 6, and then the plus sign. Notice if that box also helps me visually see, don't put that 3 again because you've already used it. Now, last but not least, 6 plus 12, which gives me 18. And there's your problem. So notice in this case, we multiplied first. We don't just do the problem in the order it comes. There's that special order that we have to do them. Let's try the next one. Here's my GEMDAS down here. What operations do I have here? I have subtraction, so I'm going to circle that. I have multiplication. I'm going to circle the M. And what else do I have? An exponent. So I don't have any grouping symbols, so what am I going to go to first? Exponents. So I'm going to put a box around the exponent. Remember what 5 to the second power means. 5 times what? 5. Not 5 times 2, 5 times 5, and that is equal to 25. Now, I'm just going to bring down everything in the problem I haven't already used, the 100, the 2, and the times. All right, so I've done the exponents. What's the next thing? I have subtraction or multiplication. Which one do I do first? Multiplication. So I'm going to put a box around my 2 times 25, which will give me 50. Done the problem. Now I'm just going to bring down everything else in the problem I haven't used. And last but not least, 100 minus 50, which gives me 50. And there's your answer. How are we doing? If you need to, pause the video so you can make sure you get all of these steps done correctly. Third one. So now what do I have here? I have division. So I'm going to circle the division. I have addition. And what is this? And you're like, oh, it's parentheses. No, it's not a grouping symbol in the sense it's talking about an operation to do in the parentheses. What does this mean? You remember it means multiplication? How do I know? Because do you see the 6 right next to the parentheses? There's no other operation, plus, minus, whatever. This means 6 times -3. So this I am not going to do first because of the grouping symbol. because there's nothing to do inside the parentheses, right? It has to have, in order to be a grouping symbol, it has to have some kind of operation or something to do inside the parentheses, like that. This one just has a single digit in there. So this one means multiply. Now, since I don't have any grouping symbols or exponents, what's the first thing that I'm going to do? Am I going to multiply first? No. Why not? Because division came before multiplication in the problem going from left to right. So we're going to divide first. So we're going to put a box around negative 16 divided by 2. You got to remember your integer rules for division. Remember, when you're dividing two different signs, the answer will be what? Negative. So then 16 divided by 2 is 8. So that would give me a negative 8. Now I'm just going to bring down and rewrite all the rest of the problem that I haven't used, which is the plus and the 6, and then those parentheses that mean multiplication times negative 3. So I've done the division. Now I have to do what? Multiply or add? Multiply, because we multiply or divide before adding and subtracting. So I'm going to put a box around 6 times negative 3, which gives you what? Do you remember your multiplication rules? Hopefully you said negative 18. Now again, I'm going to bring down the rest of the problem that I haven't used, which is negative 8 and the plus sign. And the last step, negative 8 plus negative 18. And what does that equal? Hopefully you said negative 26. You combined these two because you had 8 negatives. You're going to add on 18 more negatives. You don't have any zero pairs to cancel out. So you get negative 26. Last example. Here we go. Have our order of operations here. What are the things we have? Now we do have a grouping symbol. See how we have something to do in the parentheses? So we have grouping symbols. I have subtraction. So I'll circle my S. Now, I'm not going to also include this as addition because that was counted as the grouping symbol, but I do have this addition right here. Notice this does not mean to multiply because there is a plus sign right next to it. That parentheses is just to kind of keep it organized and neat, so the negative sign separated from the plus sign. So that would be addition. So which one do we do first? The grouping symbol. So let's put a box around that. 2 plus 8, which gives you what? 10. So we put the answer right below it. Then we just bring everything else down that we haven't used in the problem. And the minus. All right, so we've done the grouping symbol. What's next? Add or subtract? What? Whichever comes first. So which one comes first? Subtraction. So we're going to subtract first. Put a box around 20 minus 10, which gives you what? 10. And then we just bring everything else down we haven't used. So we have 10 plus negative 6. And what does that give you? You have 10 positives. You're putting on 6 negatives. You have 0 pairs, cancel out. And you're left with positive 4. Well done. Now you try this one. This one is not on your notes. Just turn your paper over, pause the video, write this problem down, put your GEMDAS beside it, and then show each step. And then you'll press play and you will get the quiz question to pop up. So go ahead and pause the video. So to recap, in today's lesson, you learned the correct order to do a problem that has more than one operation. In other words, the order of operations. And great job. Make sure you have your notes, keep them in your binder, bring your binder to class, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.